Hi everyone, I'm Celeste and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today on my channel we will be making this costume! This costume is Jasmine in her red attire when she is serving Sultan Jafar, or Jafar's Jasmine, Red Jasmine, Slave Jasmine, Sexy Jasmine, Jasmine in a red outfit, Jasmine in belly dancing outfit, that kind of thing. They do have some kind of Christmas ornaments where she actually looks very similar to this, like this one. Now, my costume does not completely look like screen accurate because I added a little bit more embellishments here and there, but feel free to have fun with cosplay because that's what it is. Your imagination is the limit. Don't let skills or learning new things stop you from getting the outfit of your dreams. So make sure to click that red button down below to subscribe if you like sewing tutorials, crazy things, me dyeing my hair, and cosplay. Yay! If you're new to my channel, hi and welcome. I'm Celeste Orchid. I've been cosplaying since 2005. I've made over definitely 200 costumes at this point. I've also made my wedding dress a few times. So if you're new here, I make sewing tutorials and costume tutorials. And leave silk claps down in the comments below. Alright, cool. So let's go ahead and get into this tutorial! Yay! For this cosplay, I'm going to be using this very nice plush velvet that I got on a remnant sale. I got like 1.5 meters of it, so it's definitely enough for a top and some nice baggy pants. So I'm very excited. Oh, it says 1.8 meters. Never mind, I guess I'm using that much. Now I'm going to be using this gold charmeuse that my mother-in-law got for me for Christmas, and I'm so excited to be cutting this up. It feels amazing! I was thinking about using this really nice satin red, but it really just doesn't look right with the velour or velvet, so I'm just going to make it out of the velvet itself. It just looks so much nicer. In the past, I have made a very beautiful Princess Jasmine costume. Look at this beautiful fabric that was from Joann's Fabrics that they no longer sell. Unfortunately, that just is the way the cookie crumbles. This is my super old Jasmine that I made in like 2014, 15, something along those lines. And I really love this costume. So I was thinking maybe I'll make the red one. And as my roommate said, it kind of does look like Christmas colors, but that's what you get. I do have some leftover gold pieces that I do want to use in this. Okay, so the pieces that were in this bag is an old broken jewelry piece, earring piece here. And then I have this band that I got from an old dress. This is actually in this part. This is this band here. Despite having these little green gems, I glued these on top. This is what this looks like. But I just broke off the top piece. So now it just has this little hangy doodaddy. So I think this is going to be really pretty on the waist. I'm going to be using this bodice top pattern. I'm going to cut off half of it and then keep the bottom half as a waist cincher in blood red. I think that'd be really cool. So you just saw me use this for the Cheeto pattern. And then I will be making a pants pattern. Yay! Just like this one. When making pants, you want to make sure you measure the in-between of your legs or the inseam. So I'm going to measure as high as I want it to go and then I wrap it all the way around to the back where I want it to end. So literally kind of straddling a tape measure. Woo! For me, my inseam is going to be about 22 inches. The next length that you want is definitely your outside seam for your pant leg. Because my leg is difficult to measure, I'm going to do it bent. And then I'm going to make the final point at the bottom. For me, that will be 32 inches, and don't forget to add seam allowance. And of course, what kind of pants would these be if I don't take my waist measurement? I actually want these to be a lot looser than what they are supposed to be, so I'm just going to make sure I have the right measurement that I want so it doesn't sit tighter or I'd be screwed. Now with all my measurements, I'm going to create this U shape with the idea that this is going to be my inseam. I'm going to go back and check it with the tape measure to make sure it is exactly the shape and size that I want it to be. Remember, if you make the U deeper, then this is going to create a more saggier crotch line. Keep that in mind when you're doing this, or if you don't do this. But if you ever use this to make pants, make sure that your inseam is the same size that you need it to be. Oh look, mine was too big, so we don't want that saggy crotch line at all. Make sure to mark your pattern where you know it's the front and the back. This really helps you when you actually get to a certain point. So yeah, Here you go. This is the butt side. Now you'll see me talk about this in a later part of the video, but I accidentally made my pants a little bit too short, but they're extremely baggy. So if you need to double check your inseam, which is your seam inside your legs, do that before you cut anything down. I didn't mention how wide my pants are going to be, but it just needs to make sure that this pattern is bigger than my waist measurement. Make sure if you want super baggy pants to make it at least double the size of your waist, and definitely keep it loose and baggy at the bottom of your pants, and have it cut to the length that you need. Now that pattern drafting is complete, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. If you have any questions about how I do this and my pattern drafting, leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to help you out. So yeah, here's the boring part of cutting it out. Just kidding, with the power of editing, we were able to fast forward this bad boy. And I'm testing my pattern on top of me just to see how far it goes. Yes, this isn't like the best way to see it, but it looks like this pattern is too small. I did not add enough on the side, so I can go back and do that now. For anyone thinking, oh, it was just because you're wearing pants, I've changed into some short shorts, and now I added my adjustments. It was still too small without the extra parts, so I taped down some more newspaper to add, and this way it fits appropriately. Hooray! Now my pattern is super complete. Next up, I'm just going to transfer this pattern onto my red velvet. This means pinning and cutting out on this fabric. So this pattern is extremely wide and it is impossible to do it on the fold. So what I have to do is actually lay out the fabric and cut it once, then repeat it on the other side so I have an inverted side for the right or the left. As long as I make sure I have two pieces, but they are opposites of each other. So here we are. I've already cut it out and I used that other piece as my pattern. So I just laid it on the fabric, making sure that the velvet is facing the same way, because if you're not careful, the velvet's pile will actually go a different direction, so it won't have the same effect. And so now all I have to do is sew this piece together and then bring those two pieces together to create the base of the pants. I do want to have like that gold fabric at the top, so I will draft that out in a second, but let's go ahead and sew this part together to create the little crotch. Since I already have this part out, I can just fold it over and use this as the base for the top. So I think I'm gonna do that and cut the top out before I forget. And now I'm going back to sew that crotch inseam. Woohoo! Next, I'm going to align the edges of the pants and pin them together. And then I take it to the sewing machine and sew them down on both sides. I didn't want to forget about the bodice, so I went back and pinned it out on this red fabric that you might remember from my Cheetos video. By the way, I love Cheetos and I can't have any because it's Lent right now. Can't wait for that to be over. I made sure to use my actual pieces as my pattern pieces so it lines up and it is very symmetrical. Now I'm just going to cut it all out. So back, side, front, side, back, back. Now we just gotta put it all together to create a top. But you'll see what I mean. I'm just gonna do the shell and then the outer first. Or the layer inside the lining first. And now the task of piecing each piece together correctly so I don't mess it up. Make sure to bring it to the sewing machine and sew it all up. So with my lining, I made sure to create some lines so I can house some boning so the top can stay up. This is very important for any type of bandeau top so it doesn't fall down and has some structural support. I'm not going to add any of the boning structure onto the velvet because I really want the velvet to be just the shell and have no integral structuring on it. So make sure to go ahead and clip your seams to make sure your seams have allowance to fold and bend and stretch the right ways. This is really important because you want your garment to fit and not pucker at the seams, and no amount of ironing can change when you clip your seams. It's just going to have an ease of allowance. Once I'm done pinking those seams, I'm going to go ahead and add this lining to it and I'm going to pin it together. Make sure that the little sweetheart part fits nicely first and then pin. Go ahead and take this piece now to the sewing machine and sew it all together at the top. Again, for the same curve at the top, make sure to clip those seams so they have the ease of allowance, especially that sweetheart neckline. Now I'm going to do this technique called understitching. Put the seams fabric onto the lining and sew that all together with a straight stitch. This is going to anchor down the lining so it won't push from the back when wearing it. This is very important because you won't get the shell to have the stitch, and this way it all stays together, and unlike, a top stitch. After I've completed my understitching, I'm going to go ahead and sew down the sides of the bodice top so I can go ahead and crop it. And to show you the example of my labors, this is what understitching looks like. It got messed up a little bit, it's not even, but I'm very proud with how it turned out for doing this again, and I don't do it too often, so I might do it more often. Now go ahead and pin down the entire bottom part of the bodice because we need to crop this to make it into a bandeau top. I made sure to pin down and mark where I want to cut out, and then I folded it in half. This is super important that I marked it, so every part of it will be the exact same. Make sure to pin it from the top as well. This is really helpful because the bust line is curved, and before I lose all faith in myself, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off. Once that's all cut off, go ahead and take out your pins and sew it all together. So I have this last zip tie here. It's pretty thin, and I think this is going to work perfect for Jasmine's top. I already have some of these sewn down because of the lining, so I'm just going to slowly insert it and then just slowly insert, as you can see, and just go on the bust line areas because that's going to be the heaviest. I know that this is going to be flipped inside out, so I want to cut it shorter than what it needs to be, and that way it won't poke and stab me so hard. So I'm just going to mark it and then cut it. Definitely messed up the order of events there, and luckily I found this zip tie, and it's going to be super awesome for me to go ahead and just slide it into those channels that I made earlier and make sure everything stays in place before I sew it all down. I made sure to sew down the entire hemline except for a small spot where I can flip it inside out and then I can hand stitch it closed. Go ahead and flip your entire top inside out. Here we are. I left this opening here, and I'll just show you the back piece. The back piece actually is just pinned here. I'm gonna get some snaps or bra hooks and just install it in the back. And that's how this bra top is going to close. So there is a gap opening right here, and I left that because she's got this like fold thingy that goes over her right boobie. So I'm going to use a scrap piece of velvet, and I'm just going to put it in this little hole doohickey here, sew it closed, and then kind of like drape and position this the way that I want it to look. So it'll look kind of like, oh look, it's there. But not like this the way, I have only two hands and one of them's holding the camera, so that's what it's just going to look like. And then I'll just like cross over and kind of create this nice bandeau top. So that's where we're at. What I'm going to do though is make sure that I hand sew this and try to keep all the stitches invisible and do it as tiny and then long in the back as possible. So yeah. I did think that I was going to add like a gem here or something here, but it really just doesn't fit, and it makes me really sad because I love it. I was thinking about adding like gold trim here, but then I think it won't look right, so I'm torn, like completely torn. I want to show you something that's super important. See how this fabric all lies the same way? If I was actually supposed to make it go this way, it would actually have a different color and draping. So with velvet, make sure you drape it first and see if you can reverse the directions to make sure that the fabric can lay in the same way or in a different way so that your colors line up, or otherwise it might be too dark. This is something that I learned while watching Annika Victoria's wedding dress video. So I am now just going to go ahead and sew this and then pin it back up here and then hand sew it down, and that concludes the top after I add the fasteners. So I think I'm actually just going to leave the top plain. That way I can actually use this not just as a Princess Jasmine top, but maybe as something else in the future. Now we're headed back to the pants, the final part that I need to finish. I'm going to go ahead and measure my ankle. And I think I did this too tight and I messed up, so whoopsies! Just watch what I do and don't follow me closely. I definitely cut 5 inches wide, and then I made sure that I was supposed to like fold it in half, and that's how it's going to have the thickness of my band around my ankles. One huge thing that I did not take into consideration was how was I going to slip my foot through this, and this was the biggest problem that I had. So when marking out your pattern, make sure you have a sizing amount for your foot to slide through or a way for you to open and close. So for my little anklets, I made sure to open and close it with some hooks. If you want to avoid doing the extra parts, just make it a little bit wider than you normally would by like 5 to 7 centimeters or by 2 inches. Now I'm just going to sew my bands together and then flip them inside out. With the bottom of the pants, I'm going to hand sew and gather it. A simple needle and thread, and do that thing in and out, but not like sex. But then when you're done, pull the fabric together to create the gather to fit the bottom of the gold anklets, and sew those two together. Now because I did not heed my warning earlier and I made the anklets only fit my ankles and not for my foot to go through it, I am going to modify mine a little bit so some of it does not actually get attached to the anklet itself, but it's just going to hang outside so I can still get my foot inside my pant. So you can see I had to have the gathering here, and then I'm just going to layer it over. Now, if you do the same thing where you want it just to be something else that you have to do when getting into your costume, you can do it the same way, but I'm going to be using these hooks and eyes, and I'm just going to hand sew these on. Not many people are going to see it, so it doesn't have to be like the most special way of attaching it. The penultimate part of Jasmine is definitely her pants top, this gold band that goes here. I'm going to draft it out onto my dress form and create kind of like this V shape. It's not going to sit like a horizontal waistband, so it's going to be a little tricky. Once I'm happy with my pattern, I'm going to make sure I'm cutting it out. The paper that I'm using here is actually baking paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my pattern and transfer it to the gold fabric, kind of like what I did earlier with the newspaper. I'm making sure to sew it together before I add it to the red part. It's super important to make sure that my waistband actually has interfacing in it so it maintains its structure. So I made sure to have a lining and a shell. I made sure to only sew down the top part so I can leave it open and flip it inside out first and then attach interfacing and then add it to the pants. If I'm not mistaken, you've already seen me do interfacing before, but I am going to work on a semi-new series teaching all about these things of interfacing, hooks and eyes, and small notions, so you don't have to see it in a big costume build and such. I didn't think about this, but this is going to actually cause a problem here in the future, so I probably won't get that nice clean point that I want. And I don't really want to cut more interfacing, so my bad. Before I attach it to the pants, I want to make sure that the fabric lies perfectly still even after ironing. So I'm just going to do a quick basting stitch down the bottom of the hem. So now I'm just going to make sure that I line up my crotch seam with the crotch of the waistband part and slowly work my way around. But remember, the pants are actually cut straight lined for a straight hem, so you're going to have to alter it a little bit, making sure that it actually has that slant in the front. I didn't realize this until it was too late, so I'm telling it to you now beforehand. I made sure that my waistband fit me and I had some overlap at the back. So I had about 1 inch in the back so I can create some snaps to make it close together. With the back of the pants, I decided to add a zipper so I can actually get inside my pants. This is one of the biggest things that you have to keep in mind if your fabric is not stretchy. Now, real talk with Celeste. I have one very quick and important announcement to make, and that is not because my head is cut off, but it is because the front part of my pants is now a V and I cut it to be straight lined. So I had to undo this like 3 times and until I got it right, which looks kind of like this terrible basting stitch right now. And I just wanted to tell you that because look at all this extra material that I did not need. Now, if you are a smart person, you wouldn't do this. I was like, oh, I'll just have like a regular stripe band, like straight across, and then I realized that I didn't want that. And I didn't think about that while I was looking at the pants and then attaching it 2 times. I was like, what's wrong with this? First I put it on backwards, and then the second time I saw like this crotch saggy baggy like component. I really didn't like it. So yeah, that's what happened. It's very awful. So I just did a basting stitch to make sure that I like what it looks like. And yeah, I did a test run because it is a basting stitch so I could see how I like it. Now I'm going to take it back to the sewing machine and sew it down. So when you're watching this video, make sure that you cut the V slicing into your tummy area, the front part, so it looks good. And now back to your tutorial program. Now, when I was editing this, I definitely did not want to leave out that little tidbit of information in that last minute. I think it's really important for you guys to see my failures and hear about my failures. So that's why this video might be so long, other than it's a full costume build. One of the last things that I need to do now is to sew the snaps at the back of my pants. And you can see that I already installed my zipper, and I'm just adding 3 in the back so I use up all of the snaps that I own. So I went ahead and started adding that chain that I mentioned in the beginning of the video to my waistband, but then I saw that I had this really nice ornate piece from this necklace I got from Goodwill ages ago. You never know what you'll find at Goodwill. And I wanted to sew this underneath it so I can have a place for that red earring. I think this will give it a better landing spot and it would make it very cohesive. So I'm going to take apart this piece of jewelry and then start sewing it all together and add a little bit of bits and ends to that, and my entire Jasmine costume will be complete. So that was Jasmine's tutorial. I hope you guys really like this outfit. I think it's so stunning. The red velvet gives us this luxurious texture that I love. I love working with velvet. Yeah, it's a little bit messy, but it's so much fun. I know I skipped over a few different details, such as sewing on the details on the pants waistband, but that will be in a future video. Now for this costume, I paired it with some gold earrings, and I made sure that they were dangly and a little bit ornate. And then I also had an armband. Now her specific armband is actually a snake. I don't have that in gold. I have it in black, and I did not feel like using the black one because it just didn't match. So I just used my gold armband. For anyone who wants to be more accurate, go ahead and go to a costume shop and buy a literal gold snake armband. It's not a bad thing. I really actually love this costume. I think it is so pretty. Now you're probably wondering, why did I make red jasmine before the turquoise jasmine? And that's because I already made a green jasmine costume. And if you're curious about it, leave a comment down below in saying that you would like to see the comparison between the two outfits. I would be absolutely happy to do that if you have any questions, or hit me up on social media. You can find the links in my description box. Remember to subscribe to my channel and to stay inspired, be creative, and I will see you in a future video. Bye!